All right, so my name is Dwight. Go by my last name, Fortune is what I usually go by. So put this, that's where we go, there we're supposed to be. So I'm trying to keep this as brief as possible because I get to telling stories and I get kind of long-winded with the stories. I love telling stories, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. The first thing I want to bring up here is John 10:27. It says, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." So to set the foundation for what we're going to talk about here today. Here's the thing, man. I was going to talk about this at the end, but I want to say it now. I like nature, and I like just learning a bunch of new things. So I like watch the Discovery Channel just to learn something new. And I remember I was looking at Discovery Channel, and they were talking about these penguins down in like Antarctica or something like that. And what they were doing is like, it's so cold down there that they have to like group together to keep each other warm. So there's like herds of hundreds and thousands of these penguins that are all vibrating next to each other. And then the ones on the outside are getting cold, they rotate to the middle and they rotate out in a circle, keeping everybody warm. Well, the babies get separated from their parents. So you wonder when they start calling out if they can hear their parents. But apparently, these babies can still hear their mother's voice and back and forth through all these thousands of penguins. So my question to you is, through all the noise that's going on in your life right now, do you still hear your father's voice? See, I was raised in the church with a praying family. I mean, like praying all the time. And I grew up knowing that God was watching me, like all the time. And at first that kept me kind of not doing things. Like I tried to be obedient because God was watching. But then at a certain point I got too smart. And I was like, well, if God's always watching, then it doesn't matter what I do anyway, because he's always watching. I can't hide from him, so I might as well just do things openly. So I just stopped caring about getting in trouble when I got in trouble. So here's where that ended up leading into. My junior year in high school, I am captain of my baseball team. I'm in all accelerated classes in high school. I'm working in the dean's office, working in the principal's office as a peer facilitator, and yet I had this other personality, like a whole other side of me. And I remember it was my first time and only time I ever had the house to myself for spring break. And that's the weekend I decide to start drinking, to start smoking, and start stealing. I don't know why, but I did. And I should have known it wasn't a good thing for me, because the first time I tried to steal from Best Buy down the street over here, I'm in a rental car, driving home, spin out on the highway and have an accident. So I wasn't supposed to be driving that car, I definitely wasn't supposed to have been stealing, and I shouldn't have been drinking and smoking that weekend. I should have told me from the beginning that I probably shouldn't do that. But it didn't stop me. It was just a little bump on the way to becoming who I became. Now, here's the second thing. This is why the reason why I think I can't use drugs like successfully. It all became because of a guy named Roy Haynes in a church parking lot on the other side of the Castleton, smoking weed, listening to Wu-Tang Clan and Outkast. Had I never went to that church parking lot, I'd probably be able to smoke weed successfully. But no, that ruined everything for my drug habit. And I didn't know at that time that would lead me to becoming a dope fiend. That at 16, 17, experimenting with marijuana, that at the age of 36, I'd be facing 12 years of prison with 5 felonies that they were still on my record. I had got charged many other times, but 5 felonies, facing 12 years of prison. Didn't know that was going to happen. So the question is, what happened? Coming from a praying family, knowing God's watching me, why would I keep doing that? And it wasn't like God wasn't telling me not to do it. So how did I drown out his voice? See, for me, often, it would be music. That was my easiest thing for me to use to drown out his voice. I remember meeting a guy who ended up becoming my main drug dealer later on in life, who knows. The first time I met him, he introduced me to a rapper named Too Short. So I was like, didn't know anything about the rapping and all that type of stuff other than like, you know, the kiddie stuff. But then this guy's talking about pimping, he's talking about hoes, he's talking about getting high and drinking, like all this stuff. And I decide I want to know all his lyrics. So I started writing them down and memorizing his lyrics. That was the beginning of me starting to think about people and the women in my life differently. And that I can actually, that having fun meant that I need to be out with women and partying and doing all these things. Not the things that my parents had taught me to do, which was to go to school, get a good grades, you know, be a model student. But I did those, right? But then in nighttime, I deal with this other thing, living two lives. So as I got to using and abusing drugs, I never stopped this whole music thing. So I might be riding down the street getting high by myself and listening to gospel or Christian music, being convicted the whole time. But that just made me use even harder to try to ignore what was going on inside of me. And then when people got in the car, we're gonna hit some licks, you know, that meant doing, for those who don't know what hit licks is, that's like going and getting your money, however you're gonna get that money, okay? So when they get in, I'm turning on Yo Gotti. Cause Yo Gotti talking about hitting licks, he don't care, like he's the one getting his money no matter what. That's the mindset I use. I remember distinctly what happened. I would pop the CD in, because I still have the CD, but pop the CD in there, and it would start coming in, and I would go from like cruising like this, you know, listen to gospel, like, and then Yo Gotti, and I'd be like this. Next thing you know, I'm ripping the car, driving down the street, turning hard because I got into the mood, like back up, you know, we're gonna hit this lick. You know, walking into places all completely different because of the noise that I was putting into my head. To drown out the voice of God in those moments. I know, babe, I'm loud, I'm very loud. But I constantly had this fight with what I needed to hear, what I wanted to listen to and do, and what I was being told to do because of what I was putting in my head. And I remember being locked up for 9 months, okay? I was, like I said, I was facing 12 years of prison. So I did 9 months down in CCA downtown, trying to see if I was gonna go to prison or not. I was hustling in there, of course. I mean, I had a candy store, I had all types of stuff, so I had whatever you wanted. You needed socks, I had socks. You needed extra pillows, I had all the things, right? Including this broken radio with the headphones that like, I had to like tape up. I don't even know where I got the tape from. Then they had like the little black gummy stuff that was between, I don't know if you guys have been to jail, you know what I'm talking about. Like you use it as stick 'em, okay? And I put together these headphones and I would listen to K-Love radio every morning, drowning out all the noise, all the stuff that was going on when I was locked up. And something about constantly listening to a Speak Life, I don't sing, but Speak Life, that song became out like, yeah, Speak Life, like that's what I wanted to do all the time. So when I came out of jail, ready to change my life, guess what I did? Within 45 minutes of getting released, I was high. 9 months of doing nothing. Now, a couple months later, I finally got clean because they're going to send me to prison for real. So I decided to go ahead and change my life around. And there are three things I did for me to help me change my life around. One, I started listening to Christian hip hop again. Because I needed someone to speak life into me. Even though I had accomplished so many things, I mean, I went to college on a full scholarship, I had a full academic and a full athletic scholarship. I got drafted to go play pro ball when I got, for baseball when I got out of there. Like, I had all these accomplishments that I had done. I owned 15 property units of real estate. Like, I had some successes. So, I'd thrown all of that stuff away. What was I gonna do to get it back? I didn't know, because I didn't think I was worthy. I didn't know that I was still a child of God. I was lost. I was lost in the sauce, so you want to say it. I was in sin. And I learned as I started getting the recovery that I had made someone else my master. I didn't know it at the time. Because I remember saying that I was going to learn how to be charming. I was going to learn the art of persuasion. I learned how to be a pickup artist because I said I would never let a woman control my life again. Then I messed around and let that girl control my life. For those of you who don't know slang again, girl is cocaine. Took over my life. I had made it my master. I had to change that. So I started changing the music that I was listening to. Christian hip hop started speaking into me. Now there was occasional old school hip hop I had to go in there. Like just remember the other day, I heard my neighbor was listening to 8-Ball MJG. And they talk about pimping and all that type of stuff. I played it. I was like, oh, I remember that. I put it in my car as I'm going to karate practice. And by the time I got there, I felt, because I had changed. Over the last 9 or almost 10 years, my life had changed because of the things that I had put in my head to quiet my mind. See, my mind is clear now. It's very clear. And I'm not convicted by the things that I used to do. That doesn't mean that I'm perfect by any means. I do still continue to make mistakes. But I can still hear his voice because there's less noise in my head and less head trash. Remember those baby penguins in the beginning? See, as I continue to work on my recovery, I continue to build my relationship with God, the more clearly I can hear his voice above all the noise around me. See, John 8:34 says this as I'm closing here. Everyone who sins is a slave of sin. But like Jesus, he don't leave you in that. He sets you up real good. You're like, oh, now that hurt, man. Why you gotta say that? Then he says, a slave is not a permanent member of the family. Which means I can go into sin, but that's not where I'm supposed to stay. That's not my home. He finishes, but a son is a part of the family forever. So even though I did everything I could to block out his voice so I couldn't hear it above the din, stepped away to do things that I wanted to do so I could not hear the Spirit and God telling me, don't go that way, he never left me. He was still calling out for me the whole time. I had to remember that I was still a child of God. And through remembering that I was a child of God, I could start hearing his voice again. I don't know why, child, I say this in closing. My mama could yell for me from the basement on the other side of town, and I would still hear her. Because my ears are tuned to her voice. And now I hear God's voice calling me when they say, hey, I need you to go speak. Hey, I need you to talk to that person. Hey, I need you to go cheer that person up. Or hey, I need to pray for you. I follow good, orderly direction, aka God, better path.